I mean, I think at this point, most of us realize that social media is designed to be addictive. They pay people a lot of money to design these apps so that we want to stay on them as much as possible. And I was definitely falling prey to that. Hey there, if you are one of my subscribers, welcome back. You are near and dear to my heart, and I appreciate you so much for being here. And if we haven't met before, hi, my name is Katie, and my husband Nick and I adopted our children from foster care, and they are currently ages 5 through 12. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet, I hope that you will click the subscribe button. It's free. I provide a lot of adoption and foster care content weekly, so I hope that you'll subscribe so we can hang out more and you can get some of that information you need. Well, at this point, we are a little over halfway through March, so I think it's probably safe to say that most of us have completely abandoned our New Year's resolution. Now, I say us, but the truth is, I never set a New Year's resolution because, you know what? I know myself and I know that that's just too stringent of a rule to place on myself, and I'm just going to set myself up for failure. How did I learn that, you may ask? Well, experience, let's be honest. However, I have over the past several years have put into practice this concept of a word of the year. And I find that setting a word of the year gives me a little bit of a better way to focus on something without setting these super hard and fast rules that if I don't do it for a couple days, I feel like, well, I might as well give up. And my word for this year is present. Not as in like, give me presents, although if you want to, I'm not gonna say no, okay? But in all seriousness, I felt like I was so distracted all the time and constantly in another world. And the other world I was frequently in was in my phone. I mean, I think at this point, most of us realize that social media is designed to be addictive. They pay people a lot of money to design these apps so that we want to stay on them as much as possible. And I was definitely falling prey to that. And I think especially as a parent, this was weighing heavy on my heart because I knew that my addiction to apps on my phone was not beneficial for my kids. So at the end of 2022, I started thinking about what would my word of the year be. And when that word present came up, I was like, really? Does it have to be present? That sounds hard. Could it be something else? But I just felt in my heart that present was supposed to be the word. And I'm glad that I did. So in order to be more present, I took some actions to help me be on my phone less. And I want to share with you today what those changes were, but also more importantly, how it transformed my parenting. All right, now for the real thing we're here for, which is talking about social media and how getting rid of it helped me as a parent. And while I do feel it's fairly obvious to most of us that we are on our phones too much and that, taking those things off of our phones would help us be better parents, for me, it's been really helpful to listen to other people's stories of exactly how it helped them, exactly what they did, because it just inspired me to do that on my own. So I hope this does the same for you. All right, let's talk about the rules I set for myself. I'm not someone who loves rules, to be perfectly honest with you, but I knew I needed to set some boundaries or rules in order to make this experiment of mine work. And instead of going cold turkey and not getting on social media at all, which is honestly a little bit hard for someone who creates YouTube content because I do tend to share those videos on my social media to get them out to more people, I knew that I wasn't going to completely cut it off, but I also knew that a lot of my social media time was spent on my phone. So instead of just completely getting rid of my account and being one of those people who's like, I'm leaving, if you don't hear from me, this is why, I just decided to delete the apps from my phone. And then if I wanted to get on them, I had to do it on my iPad, which is significantly more cumbersome and awkward to use social media on. But I knew it was going to help me to just put that friction between what I should be doing and what I don't want to be doing. So it made it a little harder for me to get on social media. I could still do it, but I am probably lazy enough that I will not go do it if I have to walk all the way to my room, get out my iPad, make sure it's charged, pull it up, and have kind of a more awkward user experience. And obviously the reason for doing this was I wanted to be more present. I was finding myself, even in the times that I was with my husband, like we'd be hanging out after the kids had gone to bed, and I would just be like wanting to grab my phone and stare at it while we were talking, which is just like something I hate when other people do, but I noticed that I was starting to do it. And it's like this compulsion. It's like you feel like you have to, you don't even realize what you're doing sometimes, Or I would get on to like check the weather and I'd be like scrolling through all this random stuff before I knew it. I've watched 15 minutes of reels on Instagram. And don't get me wrong, I love reels. I love sending them to my friends. It's like a form of love language for me sometimes, but still, it was getting out of control. So one of the things I want to talk about here is how it felt once I took those things off my phone. And I hate to admit this, but I definitely realized that I was an addict. Why? Well, because I seriously felt like I was having withdrawals. First of all, it's pretty pathetic to admit how many times I pulled my phone out and started like scrolling through and be like, where's Instagram at? Where's Facebook at? I mean, a couple times a day at least, where I would just forget it wasn't there anymore. I was just looking for something that didn't exist and I didn't even consciously choose to do it. It was like muscle memory. Like my hand just pulled it up and I'm looking, I'm like, that's weird. Where are those apps at? And it made me super aware of how often I check my phone for no reason. And I want to put this out here too, that I had already set some boundaries with my phone. Like I had screen time limits turned on, which they're a little too easy to ignore, to be honest. I'm like, ignore for today if I didn't feel like following that rule that day. But I had set some boundaries. I was someone who did not have notifications turned on for any of my apps, like my social media apps. Facebook, I did not get one. Instagram did not get them. I had to actively click on the app to know if I had a notification. And even when I get notifications, once I click into the app, usually it's like nothing that exciting. No offense to my parents or my uncle, but I get a notification telling me when they posted their Wordle score of the day, which isn't even something I play. And I'd be like, oh, I got a notification. And it's just like their Wordle score of the day. And like that dopamine you get from getting a notification, it's like scary how well it works. So I also realized how often, if I had any sort of uncomfortable situation, or if I was just bored, or if I didn't want to have to think about something or deal with something, how frequently I would turn to my phone in those times. But without those apps, there wasn't really a lot I was going to do online. So I would be like, oh, I have to kind of sit with this uncomfy feeling right now, which I think is so good to do. I think that's where addictions often come from, when we're not willing to sit with those uncomfortable, not so pleasant thoughts, or just take time in silence to think. But it was forcing me to do that because I didn't have my phone to just turn to and get sucked into right away. Now, full disclosure, I did not give up YouTube, and I did find myself getting on YouTube even more because I did not have my other apps. There were a few times I got pulled into the YouTube Shorts, which I'm gonna be honest, I wish did not exist. There's already too many platforms with those short video contents that you just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and you just get sucked in. Whereas like what I like on YouTube is to put on a long form video, put in my headphones and like get something done, like clean the kitchen or something. It honestly gives me a lot of motivation because I know I don't have to engage with my phone. I can just put it on, leave it, almost like listening to a podcast, okay? And it helps me sometimes be a little more productive when I'm doing things like cleaning. But I did notice that I was resorting to that a lot more. Like I would just find myself scrolling on YouTube, saving videos to my watch later instead of scrolling Facebook or Instagram. So I was kind of like replacing the habit with a different one. But I did kind of catch myself in that, and there were times I would just decide to leave my phone, specifically leave it in my room instead of carrying it around with me, and that did help. There were even a few days where I would get home from work, I would put my stuff down, and I wouldn't even notice until after dinner. Like I get home around 4 typically. I wouldn't notice till like 6:30 that I hadn't touched my phone since I left work, which felt really, really good actually. So I did feel like the addiction slowly starting to break down. So that was good. Now I will say recently I added Facebook back onto my phone for a short period of time because I was selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace and it's just easier when it's on there. But man, I did get back into scrolling through the little videos. The videos are what get me because there's so many videos. You never know what you're going to get next. It's like, this is why I never got TikTok, because I knew it would not be a good idea for me. So how did this impact my parenting? Let me tell you, it was great. So one thing I noticed is that I was getting my chores and just household tasks done so much faster. And even though I was oftentimes still listening to a podcast or a YouTube video, as I was doing those things, I was not ever getting sucked into the scroll because I was watching a long form video or a podcast. And oftentimes those were educational things, like things about growing my YouTube or ways to improve my business or anything like that. So it was still like an active learning thing, and I was also getting stuff done. But how this affected my relationship with my kids is that a lot of times I feel like I have so many things to do around the house to keep the household running that I don't have time to just like sit down and be with my kids. And what I realized is that scrolling was often taking a lot of the time that I could have been actually getting those things done. And so, as you can expect, I had more time to spend with my kids. I felt like I had more time to sit down and like do their hair and do cooler styles in their hair than what I would typically do. I had more time to just sit with them and cuddle and watch a show, which is oftentimes something I'm too like, oh, I have so much to do. I can't do that. And so I just saw them really appreciate that. Of course, they're kids, so you give them something, they want more and more and more and more. And even when I would spend a lot of time with them and would try to get up and go do something else, they'd be like, you just stay with me. Why are you leaving? But I felt good about the fact that I've been able to spend time with them, that time that I normally probably wouldn't have spent with them. And one more unexpected way that it positively affected my parenting was that I realized how much less overstimulated I felt, because I'm an introvert, and as a mom of 3 kids, they're always being loud and running around and asking questions and dancing and yelling and whatever. There's always stuff happening around me, and I am very easily overstimulated by that. It's just who I am. I have a harder time. I have to take more breaks to just like calm my body down and feel more at peace, and then I can go back out. But I don't think I realized that scrolling through my phone and trying to watch videos while all that stuff is going on around me was impacting me and making me feel even more overstimulated and overwhelmed. And I found myself not getting as frustrated with my kids, because something I've realized is that if you're trying to listen to something or watch something or read and scroll through something and you get interrupted, it's frustrating, especially if you keep getting interrupted again and again. And so by just not engaging with my phone as much, I didn't feel frustrated because I wasn't getting interrupted from something else I was concentrating on. I was just, maybe washing the dishes. I can talk while I wash the dishes. And so that was a really surprising thing, but it did make a difference. I just felt less angry, less easily upset by my kids. And man, that was a good change, because I didn't even realize that was kind of causing it. Although I should have, because I've noticed the same exact thing with my kids. If my kids are watching a tablet or a show and I say, hey, I actually need you to go clean up the table, or you forgot something, they will be like, oh, they'll get so annoyed. But if I ask them that same exact thing when they're not watching something, they'll be like, okay, and I'm like, whoa. But it's because they weren't being interrupted. And I like to think I am more mature than my children and above that, but apparently we're the same. And I think all of these things just piled up on top of each other. I just felt a stronger connection with my kids, which as an adoptive parent especially is so important, because I did struggle with connection with my kids for a long time and bonding. And so just to do one more thing to make it a little bit easier, it was great. I was enjoying my time with them more than I typically do. And my husband noticed. He was like, you've been so present with the kids, and there's my word, present. He's like, I just feel like you seem like you're enjoying it more, and it's just really cool to see. And so that is so encouraging to me. Like, all I did was delete 2 apps from my phone. 2. And I've seen all these positive changes. Now, will I always keep it off of my phone? Maybe. I still have it off my phone. I took it off, like, I want to say mid-January. I didn't start the very beginning of the year. It's like mid to late January, and it is now like middle of March, and I still don't have them on there, and it feels good. So here's the thing. If you're finding yourself feeling like you don't have enough time to spend with your kids and they always want more time with you, which what parent doesn't, or that you're overstimulated all the time, or that you're feeling angry with them, or anything like that, or you just feel like you're getting distracted during conversations with your kids or your spouse, I encourage you to do the same. Think about the apps on your phone that keep you from experiencing those real relationships within your home. and just try deleting them. Again, you don't have to completely delete your account. You can do what I do, keep it on your iPad, on your computer, make it a little harder, but I still got on Instagram. I still got on Facebook sometimes, but so much less. And I would spend so much less time on those apps. And the benefits that have come from it are incredible. And I'd like to see how I can take it like a step further just to see if that would make things even better. So I hope that you will try this. If you want to try this as well, can you just put like the sunglass emoji guy in the comments to show me that you are also trying to reduce your social media intake to be a better parent or just to be a better spouse, a better friend, whatever it is. I would love to see that in the comments if you are also kind of on this journey or want to get started on it. And now a quick word from me at a different time. I'm here with a guest, my husband, because we are going to do a little quick review of some shoes that we were gifted by the company Fitville. So Fitville is basically a company that provides really supportive shoes for walking or athletics or things like that. And they're especially friendly to people with wider feet or people with foot issues. So if you're someone who deals with any sort of foot pain, or maybe you have really flat feet like me, these types of shoes can be really helpful for you because they're very supportive and very cushioned. So I was actually really excited when they reached out to us because I've been looking for a good pair of shoes, and it is hard. I have extremely flat feet, and it's not like this company knew that, but it worked out. So they actually were kind enough to send me a pair and also Nick a pair. And Nick wears them like even way more than I do. So I'm going to let him share some of his things that he enjoys about them.
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest things is really, I pretty much never have to worry about wearing these shoes too long. A lot of shoes, even though they're pretty comfortable, they tend to hurt after a couple hours of wearing them. So if I know I'm going to be somewhere and I can't change out of shoes for a long period of time, that's one of the things. These are kind of my go-to shoes.
And as you can see, the pair I got is like basically the exact same.
The same.
So his are just bigger than mine, but they look exactly the same. So it's kind of hilarious if we both wear them at the same time. So something I will say is that I don't wear them nearly as often as you do. And so for me, these are mostly just for walking. And I will say though, I agree with you. If you wear them for a long period of time, they do not hurt. And I tend to have some heel pain every so often. And with these, it feels so cushioned and it's really, really nice.
Another thing that I really like about them is a lot of shoes I've gotten in the past, they tend to kind of cram my toes at the top sometimes. And this shoe actually has a lot of space up there. And so I never feel like my toes are jamming into each other when I'm walking, and so that does add extra comfort.
That's one of the things that they advertise is they have like a wider toe box, because a lot of shoes squeeze your toes together. It's actually super bad for your feet, so that's why they design these. Now, one other thing I will say about these is that if your feet are more narrow, I'm not sure that these would be as good of a fit for you. But if you have wide feet, I know it can be really hard to find shoes. These would be a great fit for you. So just so you know, Fitville did not pay me to say this. They just sent me shoes and asked for an honest review. And so we were really happy with them. So I definitely would recommend them. So I'll include a link down below if you want to check these out. I'm not getting any sort of commission from this. I just wanted to share our honest thoughts with you. So thank you to Fitville for sending us these shoes. We have definitely gotten a lot of use out of them and will continue to do so. Because I mean, we've had these since what? December, and Nick wears these all the time, and like they still look great. They're holding up really well. So definitely if you're looking for a high quality shoe, we've enjoyed these. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video and making it all the way to the end. I really appreciate you. I'm so glad you're here. If you enjoyed the video, if you could click that thumbs up button, it would mean a lot to me. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you next week.